I was on a walk in the mountains with some guys the other day, and somebody said, and they're referring to their existing career, and they said, there has to be more to life than this. And, the guy, he was referring to, he's got mortgage to pay, family commitments, he's providing for his family, but he's shoveling away, effectively doing something that he doesn't really like, but it pays well because, and he just needs to keep his head down. Like many people, who head for this mirage on the horizon, it's like, I'll just need to get to X, I just need to get to the mortgage paid or retirement or whatever some, magical solution will be in the future. And then there'll be an escape route. And I recognize this, there must be more to life than this, because I felt it myself, right? This quiet despair, this dread. And it's not ever present. It's something that pops up on a Sunday afternoon. In fact, the psychologist Viktor Frankl used to refer to it as Sunday neurosis. And I had this friend that he said he used to tense up on a Sunday because he'd had a really good weekend relaxing, and then he'd get tense on a Sunday knowing that what's coming on the Monday, and you're thinking, oh God, I've got to go back to that again. And it's amazingly common. It's amazing how many people, despite a brave face, actually don't really like what they're doing. And these roles, they sap you of energy. You've got to go through a calendar of stuff that you've got to motor through that you're not really aligned with. And yet the advice you get from your parents' generation, which is pre-internet, is keep your head down. You're lucky to have a job. Just keep going. But what's the alternative, right? The fear is real. On the one hand, you've got your comfort zone. Like, I don't really like what I'm doing, but what on earth would I do that pays the same amount to support my family? And on the other side, you've got your imposter syndrome, which is, I'm lucky to have a job. This is a first world problem. Stop grumbling, keep your head down. It reminds me of, it's the same sort of guilt that you used to get from your parents around eating your greens, right? So eat your greens because somebody in Ethiopia would, starving and would enjoy that. And it's the same, keep your job, keep going on your existing job because you're lucky to have one. And that's well-meaning advice, but it's toxic, because the reality is sticking with on a treadmill in the rat race in a job you don't really enjoy is slowly killing you. And I'm not exaggerating there. When you meet this magic milestone in the future, this mirage on the horizon, are you going to be physically capable of doing anything, having, numbed your way through life, waiting for this magic? Are you actually going to be capable of doing anything once you get there? But I'd ask you to stop and think. Think about your younger self. With everything that you've achieved, what would they say to you today? And I bet they'd say something like, what are you waiting for? Whose permission are you waiting for to do something about this? What magic moment are you hoping will suddenly appear that will allow you to actually make the move to doing something you really want to do? I bet that younger self would say, wake up and smell the coffee. Now, if any of this is resonating, this whole, there must be more to life than this, there's 2 points I want to make. One is that this feeling, I just want to validate that this feeling is real, right? It's something that you ought to act on. And, there is an escape route. There is a way of finding more fulfilling and meaningful work that you're going to feel happy with without blowing up all of your commitments and you looking after your kids or whatever it is that's holding you into the existing role. And secondly, my second point is that this requires you to be bold. And if you're too entrenched in what you're doing to think about making that leap, just think about your 8-year-old self. They're proud of what you've achieved, and they're looking at you about what you're going to do next. And also think about your 80-year-old self towards the end of your life, and they're looking back at what they should have done or what they, what they were capable of. Just think about what they're thinking. But whatever you do, just do something.